everyone, this is Amy from the Helms Academy, and today we're going to talk about some quick rules for better spelling. So today we're going to focus on 5 quick rules. Now, as you all know, spelling in English is not very straightforward. So while we have some quick rules to help guide you in the spelling, we also know there are some exceptions and there are many more rules to learn. These are 5 common and quick rules to help immediately take your spelling from here to here and to be able to see common spelling errors, especially on things like the HiSET or GED or TASC test when you're doing the writing or language arts portion. Let's get started with our first rule today, which is change the Y to IES. So if you have a word that ends in Y, like difficulty, and you want to make it plural, you're going to take the Y off and you're going to add an IES instead. So difficulty becomes difficulties. One baby turns into 2 babies. One company turns into 2 companies. And the same even with the word fly. Just because it doesn't sound like the E sound like we heard in difficulty, baby, company, fly still ends in the Y. And so to make it plural, flies, we change the Y to IES. Our second rule is I before E except after C. So you'll see this in the comparison I give at the top. The word believe, B-E-L-I-E-V-E, keeps that I before E rule. So as a general rule of thumb, we think we keep the letter I before the letter E when they're in a combination of letters together. Now, if we see a C before it, so for example, the word receive, R-E-C-E-I-V-E, we swap them. So it's no longer I before E, it is E before I if it's coming after the letter C. Now, in English, as I said before, there are a lot of rule breakers, and we don't always follow the exact rules all the time. So you will still see some words that are a little strange, like weird has the EI, but not after the letter C. Same thing with neighbor or foreign. The reason for this is that English comes from a lot of different languages and a lot of different histories. And so the way the language has come together, it doesn't always follow the same exact rules like a single language would. Because it's a compilation of so many different places and other languages, it can have a lot of strange spelling rules in there. So keep in mind, while this is a good rule to hold on to, I before E except after C, there are some rule breakers out there. Great, so our next rule is to change F to VES. Now you'll see this most commonly in things like leaf and leaves. Okay? So it sounds a little strange. I think if we try to say leaves, it's a lot of work on the mouth. And so when we change it to leaves, it flows a little better off the tongue. So think about that. I always recommend to students, if you are unsure about something that you're reading, especially if you're looking for an error, whether it's for spelling or for grammar, try to read it out loud, or if you can't speak out loud because you're in a test, at least mouth the words, because it helps you to see things or hear things or experience things in ways that you don't when you just look with your eyes. So again, we're going to change the F at the end of a sentence to VES, like elf turns into elves. Now we do have a different exception here. You'll see this one ends in FE, wife, right? But we still change that to a VES, right? Because it still ends in the F sound. Even though we have that E there, the E is silent. So we wouldn't say wifes, we'd say wives. Our fourth rule is to drop the E. Now this is when we're adding a specific kind of ending. So if we're adding an ing or an ed or an able, some sort of suffix, which is an ending that goes onto a word. If our word previously ended in an E, we're going to get rid of it. So for example, if I have the word bake, now I remember because of this function of this word and the E in the end, we have that long A sound, right? Bake. But we don't pronounce the E. So that's part of why we drop it. Right? When we add an ing to it and want to make it into baking, the E gets dropped. Same thing with move, right? The E is silent. And so when we add an ending to it, in this case, ed, we're going to drop the E and just make it moved, M-O-V-E-D. Now this one gets a little confusing for folks because they say, well, the E is still there. Well, that's because we need that ED ending, right? Like the past tense, we usually add an ED. But we don't have both E's there. We just keep one. Our next one is love and able. So we want to make the word lovable, but we have to drop the E on there to add our new ending. For number 5, you'll see double up the consonants. So when we see something that ends with a single consonant, and usually it's a very simple word like this, right? Like sit. You'll see a consonant S, a vowel I, and then another consonant T. Sit, when we go to add an ending to it, like an ER or an ING at the end, we have to double up the consonant. So instead of being S-I-T-E-R, we do a double T there, S-I-T-T-E-R, sitter, or S-I-T-T-I-N-G, sitting. Same thing for big, right? We have that same combination, right? A consonant, a vowel, a consonant, B-I-G. So when we go to add more to the end, we have to double up the consonant at the end. So big, B-I-G, becomes bigger, B-I-G-G-E-R, or biggest, B-I-G-G-E-S-T. For strap, we see strapped and strapping, and you'll see again there, we took that P at the end and we doubled it up. Now this is an interesting one because all our other examples are only 3 letters, but if you look at strap, the STR make one sound together, strap, right? So just like the S or B or H, we see strap, and that becomes one sound with a vowel in the middle and a consonant on the end. So we still use that same rule. And hop is our last example here. Again, we add 2 P's instead of just 1 for hopper and hopping. Now, this is just the beginning of learning spelling rules. So I hope that you learned something new today or got a good review of something you haven't heard in a while. But there are some more ways to work on spelling. And one of the best ways you can do that is just by reading regularly. Because when you see the spelling of a word in your reading, it will get more ingrained into your brain in useful ways. Another thing you can do is practice writing each day. And I especially encourage you to practice writing on a computer using Word or Google Docs, somewhere where you can practice and it can show you if something is misspelled. So you'll see the little red squiggly line, and it will show you, this is a misspelling, and it'll show you some options for what you might want to change it to. And that can help to figure out which words do you commonly misspell, so that when you are working on a test for the GED or HiSET or TASC, and you're handwriting or typing your essay, those functions won't be there. And so it will want you to be able to identify those things for yourself. And this kind of writing practice each day can help. You know, one thing I like to remind students of is that it's good to try some sort of journaling activity. There are lots of prompts online. If you type in journaling prompts, you'll get lots of ideas of things to write about. And you don't have to write for an hour every day. Write for 10 minutes and just see what you come up with. That kind of practice of writing every day makes you a really strong writer and really will enhance your skills. Now, the other thing is that I will leave a resource below, and if you can check it out, it's in the video notes. It has some additional rules and examples and ideas that you can look at where I learned many of the specifics of spelling rules and where I'd encourage you to go to learn those as well. Thank you so much for watching today, and I really appreciate you joining us on this YouTube channel. Please subscribe below and you'll get updates on whenever we have new videos out. You can also check us out on Instagram and Facebook for lots of inspirational content and test practice. You can also check us out at helmsacademy.org.